In 1972, a Stanford psychologist put 4-year-old kids alone in a room with one marshmallow. He told them, "You can eat this now, or if you wait 15 minutes without touching it, you get 2. Some kids ate it in 10 seconds. Others sat on their hands, sang to themselves, looked away, did anything to survive the wait. 14 years later, when researchers tracked those same kids down, the ones who waited had higher SAT scores, better relationships, healthier bodies, and more successful careers. Not because they were smarter. Not because they came from money. Because of one skill, the ability to tolerate discomfort in service of a future they couldn't yet see. But wait. Before we begin, please subscribe to ensure that you never miss out on any of my essential stuff. Comment, "I subscribe," below, and I will personally welcome you to our community. With that said, let's get started. That skill has a name. And most men never learn it, not because they're weak, but because nobody ever taught them how discipline actually works in the brain. Today that changes. Most men think discipline is about willpower, gritting your teeth, forcing yourself, white-knuckling through resistance. That's why most New Year's resolutions fail by February. Willpower, as a raw resource, is unreliable. Psychologist Roy Baumeister spent decades studying what he called ego depletion, the idea that willpower is a muscle that fatigues with use. Later research complicated that picture, showing the effect depends heavily on belief and mindset. But the practical lesson survives. If discipline is just you forcing yourself through sheer effort every single time, you will eventually lose. Not because you're broken. Because that's not how the system was built to run. Real discipline isn't a feeling you wait to arrive. It's a structure you build so you don't need the feeling at all. Think about the men you respect most, the ones who train at 5 a.m. without debating it, who don't touch their phone during work, who stay calm when everyone else panics. Ask them if they feel motivated every day. They'll laugh. They stopped relying on motivation years ago. They built something stronger: identity. Here's the psychological mechanism most self-help content skips entirely. Your brain doesn't run on goals. It runs on self-concept. When you say, "I'm trying to work out more," your brain hears a temporary project, something you can quit without contradiction. But when you say, "I am a disciplined man," every action either confirms or violates that identity. Skipping the gym doesn't just cost you a workout. It creates what psychologists call cognitive dissonance, an internal contradiction your brain is wired to resolve. This is why identity-based change outperforms goal-based change almost every time. A goal is something you chase. An identity is something you defend. And men defend their identity harder than they chase anything else, because identity threat activates the same neural alarm system as physical danger. Your amygdala doesn't know the difference between a lion attacking you and doing something that proves you're not who you claim to be. So the real question isn't how do I force myself to be disciplined. It's who do I need to become so that discipline stops being a fight. Marcus Aurelius, arguably the most powerful man on earth during his reign as Roman emperor, wrote his private journal, what we now call Meditations, not to inspire anyone, but to remind himself daily who he intended to be. He wasn't naturally calm or restrained. He wrote to himself because the pull toward indulgence, anger, and ease was constant, even for a man with unlimited power. Discipline, for him, wasn't a personality trait. It was a daily rebuild. Your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for planning, delayed gratification, and long-term thinking, is in constant negotiation with your limbic system, the older, faster part of your brain built for immediate survival. The limbic system doesn't care about your goals for next year. It cares about relieving discomfort right now. This is why scrolling feels easier than working, why snoozing the alarm feels easier than training, why the excuse always sounds so reasonable in the moment. Your limbic system is winning a negotiation your prefrontal cortex doesn't even know it's in. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Discipline isn't about eliminating that pull. It never goes away completely, even in the most accomplished men alive. Discipline is about building enough structure that the pull doesn't get a vote. This is where most men go wrong. They try to win the argument with their limbic system through motivation, pump-up videos, hype music, willpower speeches. That works for about 3 days. The men who sustain discipline for years don't win the argument. They remove the negotiation entirely. Behavioral psychologist B.J. Fogg's research at Stanford found something counterintuitive. The size of a habit matters less than the friction required to start it. Men don't fail to work out because they lack motivation. They fail because their gym clothes are in a drawer upstairs, their gym bag isn't packed, and by the time they've solved those 2 logistical problems, the limbic system has already won. Every discipline failure you've ever had has an environmental fingerprint. The phone was within reach. The junk food was in the house. The bed was too comfortable to leave. High-disciplined men aren't fighting harder in the moment. They engineered the moment in advance so the fight never needed to happen. Practical application. Identify the exact friction point where you break discipline most often and attack the environment, not your willpower. Sleep in your gym clothes. Delete the app instead of promising to use it less. Put the phone in another room during work hours. You are not weak for needing this. Every disciplined man you admire uses these exact tactics. They just don't advertise it, because it doesn't fit the myth of the naturally strong man who needs no help. There's a specific mental shift that separates disciplined men from everyone else, and it has nothing to do with intensity. It's how they interpret discomfort itself. Most men interpret discomfort as a signal to stop. This feels hard gets translated by the brain into something is wrong, retreat. But discomfort during a disciplined act, a hard set at the gym, an uncomfortable conversation, an early morning, isn't a warning sign. It's the exact mechanism of growth. Muscles grow through micro-tears under resistance. Confidence grows through voluntarily doing the thing that scares you and proving to your own nervous system that you survive it. Psychologists call this self-efficacy, a term coined by Albert Bandura, one of the most cited psychologists in history. Self-efficacy is your internal belief in your own capability, and it isn't built by information or motivation. It's built exclusively through direct evidence, doing hard things and watching yourself come out the other side. Every time you follow through on something you didn't feel like doing, you're not just completing a task. You're gathering courtroom evidence for the case that you are someone who does what he says he'll do. Every time you cave, you're gathering evidence for the opposite case. This is why discipline compounds. It's not just about the workout or the cold shower or the early wake-up. It's about which version of yourself gets stronger evidence today. There's a temptation, especially for ambitious men, to go all in overnight, a complete life overhaul starting Monday. This almost always fails, and it's not a coincidence. Discipline functions like a bank account. Every kept promise to yourself is a deposit. Every broken promise is a withdrawal. Men who attempt total transformation overnight are making an enormous withdrawal request against an account with a small balance. The system collapses under its own weight within 2 weeks, and the man concludes, "I just don't have discipline," when the real problem was the size of the initial commitment, not his character. The disciplined men who stay disciplined for decades almost universally started absurdly small. 1 push-up, a 5-minute walk, making the bed. Not because the action itself matters, but because the deposit builds the account, and a strong account can eventually support enormous discipline later. This isn't a productivity hack. It's how self-trust is built at the neurological level, through repeated, verifiable proof. It's worth being honest about what's actually at stake, because vague self-improvement talk doesn't move most men, consequences do. A man without discipline doesn't just miss workouts. He becomes unpredictable to himself. He can't trust his own word, which means he quietly stops trusting his own judgment in every other area of life, his finances, his relationships, his ambitions. Confidence isn't built from affirmations. It's built from a track record. A man with no track record of keeping promises to himself has no real foundation for confidence, no matter how much he tries to talk himself into it. This is why undisciplined men often report a specific, quiet unease even when their external life looks fine. It's not depression. It's not laziness. It's the psychological cost of an identity gap, the distance between the man they believe they should be and the man their actions actually prove them to be. That gap doesn't resolve itself. It only closes through action. Here's what this looks like in practice, stripped of the theory. First, stop relying on motivation entirely. Build a non-negotiable structure, the same wake time, the same training days, decided once, not renegotiated daily. Second, engineer your environment before you engineer your willpower. Remove the friction from the behavior you want, and add friction to the behavior you don't. Third, start smaller than your ego wants to admit. The goal in month 1 isn't intensity, it's proof that you follow through. Fourth, track your kept promises, not just your results. A missed personal record is not a discipline failure. A broken promise to yourself is. Fifth, reframe discomfort the moment you feel it. It's not a stop sign, it's confirmation you're doing something that matters. None of this requires you to feel motivated. That's the entire point. Discipline was never meant to depend on how you feel. It was meant to override it. Every man watching this has felt the gap between who he says he'll be and who he's proven himself to be through actions. That gap isn't permanent. It's not a character flaw. It's the predictable result of relying on a system, motivation, that was never designed to sustain long-term behavior. The men who look disciplined from the outside aren't running on more willpower than you. They built a different relationship with discomfort, a different identity to defend, and an environment that stopped requiring the fight in the first place. That's learnable. It's not a personality you were or weren't born with. Start today with the smallest possible action you know you'll actually complete. Not the ideal version. The one you can't fail at. That's not weakness. That's how every man who now looks unshakable actually started. If this gave you a new way to think about the man you're becoming, subscribe. This channel exists to give you the psychology, not just the motivation, behind becoming that man. No. Breakdowns like this drop regularly, and the next one might be the piece you're missing. The marshmallow is still sitting in front of you. Every single day. The only question that matters is who you've decided you are before you decide what to do with it.